Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. If you have a question, give us a call with that. And one of the things Bob, we're going to talk about right off the bat was, of course, this past wild weather on the weekend on Saturday. Start off with a question on that. We did get a question from a caller. They wanted to know why the city wasn't picking up tree branches left at the curb. Caller was saying some people are elderly and unable to get them to the free drop site that you had offered.
That's always tough. I think one of the things that we wanted to do right away was open up the dump site. Typically, that's always a tough decision because once you open it up, it's hard to fathom what it really does cost to do that, but by the time they come in and grind, it's going to be fairly expensive. Quite honestly, it boils down to cost and labor. We had, like the electric department was out for 16 hours. The street department were worried about getting them off the roads, and it's just something that we just don't have the capability to do, to go to everybody's property and pick up the limbs and the trees that fall.
In a case like that, I suppose options would be, get a neighbor to help you out or something, or take it little by little if you can,
we hope that in this community, and I've seen where neighbors get together and really help each other. So hopefully there's a way that everybody can get their stuff down to the dump. And it's one of those things that I certainly understand the question and the concern. It's just something that we just physically can't do with everybody's property.
Well, I know as soon as you had announced it was opening up, it couldn't have been, 30 minutes, an hour later, boy, you saw a line of vehicles going down there.
There is a mountain of limbs down there. I think one of the things that we have is, it's sad to lose a tree because it really helps the beautification of the city. When you look at the older part of town that's got some really big old trees, we lost a number of them. I think the central part that we talked about on Saturday was probably the hardest hit. And I think, I'm just amazed at the dedication that we have from our employees. I mean, when you think about calling in the people from the streets and Mars, and you have the electric company that works for 16 hours. Probably some of the little unknowns you don't know is a number of those people were on vacation, and a number of them drove back 3 or 4 hours just to come back to be needed to clean up and to get people's power restored. And so, hats off to all of the city employees because they came in and they did a yeoman's job.
A lot, there were a few instances, too, just driving around shortly after that where, some of those trees fell on either garages or corners of homes, or I think there was one, I don't know, confirmed for sure, but where a tree fell on a couple of vehicles people owned and pretty much did them in. And so, it all happened kind of in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, this storm came in and it kind of reminded me of a miniature, I think it was June of 2016, when we had a huge windstorm that came in. It was kind of that bow echo type storm where the straight line winds just knocked down everything within an area.
It did.
The public properties wise, parks and things, how did you fare on trees and things?
I think at the end of the day, there probably is not going to be as much damage. When you lose a tree, you lose a tree. But as far as actual property damage, I don't think you'll see enough for us to file a claim either with insurance or maybe even with FEMA. There's a lot of different red tapes there. We'll double check that. I think we overturned some maybe stands and things out at Hannibal. Hannibal, you get that just about perfect, and Mark has done a great job. But then, boom, you got the wind that's come through again. So I think there's a little bit of damage there. But overall, it was mostly trees that affected the power. And so I think from that standpoint, we're pretty lucky, particularly when you look at some of the smaller communities not that far away from us. I know Sutton got hit by a tornado that was pretty severe. So I think at the end of the day, that 70-mile-an-hour wind caused havoc with our trees and made a mess of everything, but stuff we can just clean up.
No injuries that I know of, or at least hadn't
I've
heard
not
any.
heard of any either, and we always are thankful for that.
Yeah. One of the points made at the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday was about, people calling in power outages. It's not quite the same as it used to be because you have an automated metering system now where as soon as the lights go off, as soon as the power goes down, you pretty much get an instantaneous look at where the problem is at.
You do. I mean, people I know are always going to call in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of human nature.
And that's okay,
It's
too.
okay.
Yeah.
I think there was some concerns that they got, an answering machine. But at the end of the day, as soon as a house in Beatrice loses power, a notification goes to the electric department and to several people. So, they know where their problems are before we even pick up the phone and call it in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that system is pretty nice to have in the community because we just know where people have outages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the problem we had with, I think, the electric company, I think Pat Feist might even shared that here, you had a number of issues where you've got poles where there's no alleys. And so you can't get the boom trucks back there, and you got to do things kind of the old-fashioned way, and it just took time.
Yeah.
And I know that I had some calls, at 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, they're still out of power, and I understand that worry and that concern. It was just took that long to get people back on track.
And that quickness of communications, too, with the automated system, as this pinpoint project is going, that's going to probably get even better on some functions of city government because your speed by which you can do things by computer is going to get a lot better as well.
Yeah, I mean, talk about, I think you mentioned it this morning, Lift Station 6 is getting a redo with the controls. That will be connected to pinpoint fiber, and so we'll have a fiber connection on all of our lift stations, all of our buildings. When things go wrong, we won't have to rely on what we call line of sight communication. So that is going to give us even a better monitoring system across all of the facilities that the Board of Public Works has.
You mentioned earlier about the cost to grind up, wood chips or turn trees into wood chips. I mean, I didn't realize it was that much. 30 to 50,000 is kind of the general ballpark.
Yeah, we'll probably be
estimate
somewhere
there.
between $30,000 and $50,000 when we open that up. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a cheap storm, even though it only lasted about a half hour or 45 minutes. So.
No, but it kind of goes back. Unfortunately, that we can't pick all the branches up from people's properties, but at least we feel like it's something that we can do to help alleviate some of the pain that the storm created.
It's kind of nice to have that site there, a city-owned site. There used to be the old service center, kind of an old storage center for the
Right.
Board of Public Works.
Yep.
The concrete was left there, so
Yeah.
kind of found a new purpose for it, even though it's one you don't like to see very often, but it's
Well,
kind of a good location.
That, and if we would have tried to have that much traffic out at the landfill, and they got 3/4 of an inch to an inch of rain,
Yeah.
we'd have had another mud mess and trucks stuck, and so it really, at the end of the day, was a good thing to do for everybody involved.
Yeah. Had to have a loader operator down there to kind of push things back and
Right.
consolidate things, too,
Yeah,
so that
so-
was another
Yeah,
cost. of the
Yep, that took that person off another project. Because also August is a great time that we try to get streets done with, like on Court Street or 77, where we're trying to, patch in some asphalt. So took some people away from that project.
When that storm happened on Saturday morning and you had called me going around and looking at it, or not getting a chance to go around and look at it, did you at one point think, oh, wow, we've got a real emergency on our hand, or was it pretty clear that this was doable in terms of handling it with what staff you had available at the time? Or?
Well, to be real honest, it's probably the first time I was one of the people driving around. Usually try to stay out of everybody's way. And, when you got to that whole area between Lincoln and Grant and that whole area where you saw a lot of trees and you saw roads that were just closed up, I was thinking, oh, my goodness. But, when I called Jason Moore, he basically said, well, we've got a plan for this. And, I think the street department, the first and main thrust was getting the highways open because there was a couple areas where trees were on the highway. And then they work to the, as he said, kind of to the roads that carry the most traffic, and then down to the ones that carry the least. And on Saturday, our whole mission was to get the trees off the roads. And then on Monday morning, we came back in and started cleaning up the trees that were street blockers.
Yeah, when I after we had been done with our coverage out here with the storm and the warnings and things, and then I drove out there, it wasn't long I probably saw, I think there were at least 4 streets totally blocked by a tree that had fallen over. And those are just the ones I saw. I mean, there probably were more than that. I'm sure you saw them too. So
yeah, it was
nature does some weird things every once in a while.
They do. I'm hoping that that's the end of that for now.
Maybe just light rain for the rest of the time would be good.
Perfect.
So, all right. Back with more on Ask the Mayor in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. A lot of projects still going on around town. One of the most visible is the water main work, which continues on Court Street. How are things going so far on that?
I think they're going pretty well. I think they're still trying to judge, are they ahead of schedule, behind schedule, and I think it really depends on who you talk to. I will say, though, that the company that's doing the work has been really easy to work with. We kind of, we find that if it looks like it may be just a little bit behind schedule, so, they were going to go from 4th to 15th, and then there was some issues about, well, what do we do about the Homestead Parade? So they decided to work backwards. And as they were working backwards, there was a chance that they might fall into the downtown during the holiday season. And being an old retailer, you kind of understand that that's kind of the nuts and bolts of a number of retail establishments when you talk about Christmas presents and Christmas traffic. So after they finish up to 9th Street, they actually are going to mobilize back down to 4th and move through the downtown. So we get them done before the holiday season. I guess when you think about a contractor, they could have said no to either one of those and just kept with their original plan. But they are willing to, mobilize and move things around. So at the end of the day, we're thankful that they're going to do that, and we'll keep moving through that project.
Yeah. Is there an unofficial kind of target date when they think the whole thing will be wrapped up, or have you heard about that?
Originally, I think it was toward the end of September, first part of October. There is an extension because the pipe that they needed to get in and put in the ground wasn't available, and shipping, that whole shipping issue. Every time we have them start one place and then move back to the other to mobilize, it takes time away. So I don't know how far off they are. It'll become a little more clear. And I think the hard part that they don't even also know, as you move into the downtown, there's a lot of building connections that need to happen there, and I think that's going to be a good thing, but you also know that that's going to be a slow and tedious process.
Yeah. Kind of seems like, and it goes back to the retail thing, it'd be kind of neat if any time before Thanksgiving would be good.
The goal is to be out of the downtown before November.
Yeah, okay. Also a big project, maybe not quite as visible, but a sewer bypass project that's going on in the Glenover section of Northwest Beatrice. Those are the kinds of projects which most people, I don't know if we take for granted, but they're in the ground. We don't really, it's kind of like water mains. We don't think so much about it, but very important project there.
It is. That bypass, I think it takes everything from the industrial park and routes it around so you don't have any problems with the residential areas. So it's an important project that is going to give us dividends of making sure that, everything works when it comes to our sewer and our sanitation system.
The lift station thing you mentioned earlier in the first part of our program, the one up by kind of close to where the new apartment complex is, I think. That's another one that's important.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's a big lift station, and it's just things that people don't see. Every day you turn on your water, it works. You flush your toilet, it works. It's just kind of one of those things we take, especially like electricity when you turn your light on and off.
Takes money to do all that too.
It does take money to keep everything up and running.
Yeah. The trail section in East Beatrice, understand all of it poured, and now it's just being mainly what? Sort of seeding it and
cured, and then seed it, and we're done. That's going to be a nice addition to finish that off.
Just in time for the start of school too, if anybody wants to use that. So that's neat. Kind of an extra walking path there. Let's see, what else did we have? I had something else. Oh, the 6th Street repair by Dempster.
Mm-hmm.
That is yours, or there was some discussion yesterday about whose jurisdiction is that, the city, or is that NDOT, because it's a U.S. highway in through there?
As far as I understand, maintenance and repairs are our responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
If they come in and do a complete overlay or redo that road, it's their responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's very well defined what maintenance work is. So I think you're going to see some patchwork done there. You do see some patchwork done there. I think they were pouring asphalt yesterday. So we're going to get that through. And I think what I heard at the BPW is that at some point in time in 25 or 27,
Maybe it's 27.
I think it was 2027,
Yeah.
I think that highway through Beatrice is slated to get resurfaced.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we get things patched and held up through that 2027.
Yeah. And I think 136 is to be resurfaced in the area where you're doing the water main work
Yes.
now. Is that next year or the year after that?
That is next year.
Next year.
And so just to, so people kind of know what we're doing, there's some curb and gutter that's going to be taken out, and there's going to be sidewalks put in. And at the intersections, you're going to see where the ADA ramps aren't put in right away.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that is they're going to resurface the highway and come in and do those at the same time.
Yeah.
One of the things we try very hard to do is coordinate, or at least coordinate as close as we can, so we don't do something that gets torn out and redone.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks funny, and you wonder why, but that's the reason why.
Yeah. Boy, both those highways take a lot of traffic, and after a few years, you start seeing areas rut out and take quite a pounding, so it'll be nice when both of those get done,
Right.
for that matter. And NDOT's done a lot of work in between Lincoln and Beatrice, too, in terms of resurfacing. I think they're between, north of Princeton to near Crete now, or kind of in that
Right,
general
kind of in that
area.
general area.
So that'll take a while. So
Seems like they've spent a lot of time on that road over the years.
never any shortage of work on US 77 because it's such a big commuter route and everything. So news yesterday that one of the projects that was part of the interest-free loan from the state of Nebraska, the transmission line project that connects you with the water well fields northwest of town, second feed, that's all ready to go. Sounds
It's
like.
ready to go. Water testing was approved. Again, it's nice to have redundancy. There's a lot of communities across the country that don't have the water resources that Beatrice has, and so we're very fortunate to look at that as something that will pay major dividends. We have a problem with either one of the wells, and at least now we have redundancy, and that's pretty important in this day and age.
Yeah. Speaking of not having enough facilities, it kind of goes back to the Flint, Michigan crisis thing, and I know towns have gone through that thing where you have to do the inventory of
Yes.
what you have with lead or copper. Are you pretty much finished on that inventory of that?
I think it had to be done by 2024. I think we've got a really good handle on most of the homes. I think the plan is at some point in time, the few homes that we don't have, they're probably going to have to go door to door and inspect.
I see. Okay.
So we will get that federal mandate done in plenty of time.
Your water department was kind of ahead of the game on that.
Yeah.
Started pretty early and had a pretty good idea of what was in the ground and what wasn't there. So
Yes,
a lot of work done.
we're very fortunate there.
Yeah. All right. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Bob Morgan today. Back on Ask the Mayor today, just a few moments left with Mayor Bob Morgan today. You're not too far away from the end of the Big Blue Water Park season, and I know this time of year when you get into school, you start losing lifeguard help. So that's
Right.
kind of the key to that whole
Yeah, we
thing.
lose lifeguard help and we lose our customers. They're back in school.
Yeah.
And I think school, I'm not mistaken, starts like August 10th.
Yeah, it's pretty early this year. In fact, teachers are already back, I think, for especially new teachers, and I think there's orientation things and things
So-
like that. So, but it comes up pretty quick.
I'm not sure what the last day is, I have to admit that. But at the end of the day, it's coming quickly.
Yeah. What kind of season do you think it was in terms of just attendance? Any kind of windshield view of it, or?
Don't know. I think it was good again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's always one of the nice features of any community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The one kind of glitch this year was the splash pad where that thing just didn't come in, that unit. Is it anywhere closer to being delivered, or have you heard anything?
haven't had an update on that.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, there's the timer now. You can,
Right.
you
We
can
got
use
the
it,
timer
so-
working, and that one's a little easier to keep open longer if we can.
Yeah.
You don't have the drainage that you need to do,
Yeah.
and keeping a pool up is
Yeah.
a lot of work.
You foresee that splash pad staying open through about what, Labor Day or something, or any idea on that, or?
Don't know for sure, but I know we talked about leaving it open a little bit longer because
Yeah.
we didn't have a way to use it earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Any update on the Paddock Kensington project in downtown Beatrice as to who's interested, maybe as a developer, or what the resolution of that might
I think
be?
the request for kind of qualifications, or maybe it's really not a bid process. We had a number of firms that went through that. I think one of the people who did a yeoman's work there was Michael Southland, taking people through the building. I think those proposals are due actually Friday, and so that'll give us some time to read through them to see what people's plans were. It's a little different than a bid process. You won't have a low bid. You'll basically take a look at the plans to see what ideas or what really works the best, and again, what's the overall cost that the developer might have, and what are they asking the city to help with.
Some people say that when you leave a building vacant for so long, it's just, and you don't have the activity going in and out, that's when you start running into problems with it deteriorating. Knowing that, if something doesn't come about right away, are there any steps taken to kind of just make sure it's in good working order, or do some routine things at all, or can you do that?
Well, I'm sure we'll continue to go in
Yeah.
and make sure everything is safe and secure, and run things like water and some of those things. So we hope the proposals come through that we can get something done. Otherwise, we'll take the safety measures we need to keep the building in as good a shape as possible.
Okay. Monday night, you have a city council meeting coming up, first one for the month of August, and I guess the big thing on the agenda is the concept plan regarding the Court Street corridor. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I don't know how many times the downtown revitalization or Court Street plans have, I don't know how many studies we've done.
It's either 2 or 3, and
We've
I can't
done
remember.
2 or 3, and at the end of the day, they all come around to about the same solutions. And so what is on Monday night's agenda is there'll be a resolution to adopt the concept or the end of the study plans. Now, that'll be a vote to say yes or no. We're going to adopt those. If we would say yes, we do adopt this concept, it doesn't mean that we're going to stick a shovel in the ground the next day. It means that then we take the next steps to study to figure out how to do the design process and what that's going to cost. There's costs involved. So I think it's time to vote on whether we're going to approve or not approve a concept for downtown revitalization, because we've studied it enough times. Is it something that we can at least agree on that this is the best way to try to move forward? And it also gives us the opportunity then to say, okay, if this is kind of the best way to move forward, where can we go apply for federal funding and grants? Because we know that at the end of the day, that project would take some funding. So it is just to approve the concept. It doesn't have anything to do with whether we're going to put a shovel in the ground. It does mean that we approve this concept, and then we'll figure out what the next steps are. It's something that you don't do overnight. It may be something we don't even get started or accomplished in 4 years, but at least we have a direction of where to go to revitalize downtown. And so at the end of the day, do we revitalize downtown or don't we? So that's really what the vote is for, the concept.
Once that vote is taken, and then you would at some point move to the design phase there, do you stick with the company that's kind of done the corridor study? Or, I mean, because since it's a professional service, you have the ability to do that without bidding it, but or do you open it up and look at other firms?
I think you pretty much, if you want the most bang for your dollar, you keep with the same firm that did the concept study. They know the ins and outs. They've talked to a number of people at 2 different public sessions. And so otherwise you start completely over, and that's not a good thing to do because that's just going to cost you money.
Okay. Mayor, thanks very much. We'll see you Monday night.
All right. Thank you.